Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles, Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the Sencast, a podcast for special educational needs and disability. Each week on the podcast, we talk about a different topic within the world of SEN to improve our knowledge, to provide support to professionals working in schools, to empower parents and to raise awareness. In this episode, we discuss supporting neurodiverse girls through puberty and the transition to secondary school. And this week I was joined by Kim McCabe, the founder of Rights for Girls CIC, an organisation dedicated to making growing up kinder for girls and also saner for parents. Kim also appears on BBC and Sky News as a child development expert. The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and we help to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEN make. And we can help schools to show progress from a starting point for a wide range of abilities and ages. And we have a range of frameworks going from birth all the way through to 25. We also have frameworks like our SEMH, our communication interaction, our autism progress, and our upcoming executive function framework to not just look at those academic skills, but to look at those softer skills as well. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through our assessment software and all our different frameworks. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guest this week is Kim McCabe, the founder of Rights for Girls CIC, an organisation dedicated to making growing up kinder for girls and saner for parents. Kim is the author of From Daughter to Woman, a parenting guide praised for its wise and practical support through the teen years. Kim also appears on BBC and Sky News as a child development expert. Welcome to the show, Kim.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So, puberty is not fun for anyone. Lots of awkwardness and lots of unknown. It is most definitely worse for girls than boys. Lots more to deal with, and it makes so much more sense why girls grow up quicker than boys, because they have to. From my own personal experience with my daughters, I know for neurodiverse girls, it can be a much bigger struggle.
It is. It can be a perfect storm because for girls, the onset of puberty coincides with moving from primary to secondary school, which for girls often coincides with the first kind of real strong experience of being different. Boys are often, their neurodiversity is often identified much younger, but for girls, for a number of different reasons, they're very good at masking. It can actually not really present itself or present any challenges or any difficulties until that age. So around 10, 11, 12 years old, girls, neurodiverse girls particularly, can find themselves absolutely swamped with challenges and changes and feeling like they're different and they don't fit in, which is a feeling that's common to the teenage years, all teenagers anyway. So it's a time when I really wanted to give good attention to what girls need at that age and stage so that we can work preventatively, so that we can be there giving them what they need at that age and stage instead of waiting until, mid-teen years where we start to run into some of the scary statistics of 1 in 4 girls self-harming. A lot of girls, and I'm not just talking about neurodiverse girls, I'm talking about all girls, clinically depressed. And so, of course, our girls who have extra challenges are going to feel that even more.
Definitely. And from my own daughter's experience is we thought she was autistic from a young age, but she was doing really well. So, and everything we saw, we supported and but it was around year 7, I think it was the beginning of year 8, she was really struggling and lots of conversations, lots of things, conversation with schools. And she obviously recognized she was different, but didn't know why. And she was looking for all these things on TikTok going, I think I'm this. And I'm going, no, you're not. But I didn't know it. And then she came in one night at 3:00 in the morning and was really upset. And we had a 2-3 hour conversation. And I said, I think you're autistic. Went through everything. And then I said, when did you start feeling this? And it was actually like year 3 or year 4 that actually where almost her direction was not the same as everyone else's. And it was not the feelings towards boys, but it's how she responded to boys and things, like all these different things. She was just knowing that other girls were doing one thing and she wasn't fitting in and was trying to work out why. And that just got worse and worse. And then as the secondary school, the social side for girls is so much more complicated. There is no rule book. It is absolutely mental. And just trying to make her way through that. While all the other girls, they're not, I think the rule book isn't there not because they're all settled. It's because they're all changing. They're all learning their own sets of rules and then trying to interact with everyone else it's very messy.
It's a really challenging time. And of course, with the onset of puberty comes that kind of greater awareness of the world and of what's going on around you, which, many girls are kind of blissfully unaware of as they're growing up and they're younger. And so they're just themselves. I mean, when they first come to our groups, they are delightfully, uniquely, quirkily themselves. All girls, both the neurodiverse ones and those who are more mainstream. But it's like, as they go into, like you say, year 3, year 4, year 5, they start to become more self-aware. And with that comes a growing self-consciousness. And it's an important part of growing up. It's really important that children, young people become aware of their impact in the world, how what they say or do interacts with the others around them. And gloriously, often a good primary school, those primary school years, those children have grown up together. They've kind of almost like accepted, oh, well, that's what she's like. And that sort of quirkiness and difference amongst children is allowed for. As they go into puberty, generally around year 6, 7, 8, they're all becoming more self-conscious. They're all becoming much more aware of, do I fit in? Do I look right? Do I sound right? Am I interested in the right things? And with that comes both an internal criticism of themselves, but also external, more judgmental of each other. And so whereas a neurodiverse girl, and a lot of what I'm talking about applies to boys too, it's just that boys come into puberty a couple of years later. So they're blessed in that they don't have to make the transition from primary to secondary at the same time as puberty, at the same time as often becoming aware of their neurodiverse difference. For boys, often the awareness of neurodiversity comes earlier, then they have the transition from school, and then they have puberty. With girls, it often comes all at once. And so, of course, it then presents a confusion for neurodiverse girls, because not only are they changing really rapidly, their bodies are changing, but when I say their bodies, of course, there's the outward changes that you can see, but it's inside as well. Their brains are changing in a way that we're only really coming to understand better now. The prefrontal cortex, they can't assess risk in the same way. They feel things more intensely, and they make different decisions in a group than they would individually. So combine that with suddenly moving school and all the friendship groups reconfigure, and girls, neurodiverse girls particularly, can suddenly feel very lost. They're lost inside themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. They find themselves not to be so accepted. And so they start to believe they're not so acceptable. And this is where the role of teachers and parents becomes really important, because all the other children around them are also changing. We're the constant. We're the adult in the room. So a deeper understanding of their needs can really help them through this phase. And also a level of acceptance that their difference is going to start showing up more. And so important not to make that difference wrong. I think so many children, as soon as they feel different, they think it means there's something wrong with them. And so it's really important that those differences that start to particularly emerge in puberty for girls are ones that can be understood, celebrated, not pathologized.
Definitely. I think for boys, you go home at end of primary, you come back in secondary, all the boys look the same. For the next 2 years, they're generally the same. Some have growth spurts, but generally boys are pretty constant, whereas girls puberty starts at completely different ages for various reasons. And as you said, outwardly, girls start looking different. And it's very easy to just, my daughter would look left and right and compare herself to all the other girls and where she is, her height, all those sorts of things. And then all the boys are going, what's going on with the girls? So it's not only the girls judging each other, suddenly they're getting judged differently by the boys. And it is just, for me, literally, I don't remember any of this. Growing up as a boy, life is simple. You just drift through life and life is very simple. But just listening to my daughter, and she's now at college, but just the journey she's going through, and she's really open, just discussing how she would feel, different days of the all that sort of stuff, and just how people treated her, her friends. I think at primary school, what impacts you were kids' TV shows and your other girls and boys in the playground. As you hit secondary school, generally they all start getting phones, whether they're phones in school or out of school. Everyone starts getting impacted by that world of social media. That now is really having a big impact and making them look at themselves differently, and everyone else is having a slightly different impact. And it's which films you like, which music you like, all that lot. Everything is changing. And you're like, should I like what I like, or should I like what they like to be in with them? It's complicated.
It is. And it's, well, do you know what? I mean, I'm still in the process. I was about to use the past tense. I was about to say I've raised 3 children. They are nearly all grown and thrown, but I've got to say currently, I'm still involved in that relationship. But I would say over the last 10 years, I feel more and more strongly, because I see the impact on children of social media. I feel more strongly that the more we can kind of give them time out or time away from it, the better. It is great. It can be a way where young people can find their tribe. If their tribe isn't, if the people like them aren't in their school, aren't in their clubs or in their community, if they can't easily, naturally find people like me, sometimes online, that is where they can. And they can start to feel normalized. Like, oh my gosh, I'm hanging out with people who think like me, who feel like me, who say stuff like me. That's so reassuring and affirming, particularly at that time of puberty when you're going through so much change. And actually, who, whatever age you are, finds change easy? None of us do. Even if it's welcome change, even if it's change that you want and you embrace, it's still really unsettling. And children especially find change a challenge. They haven't yet got the tools that we develop in as we grow older and into adult life for how to manage change, how to make change feel a little bit safer, how to make ourselves feel like we're a little bit more in charge or have some agency through change. Because change, a lot of aspects of change feel out of our control, which of course is something that's, when you're young, particularly if you're neurodiverse, it's like change is challenging. So figuring out, okay, so what does this child need? And I'm now talking to parents, teachers, but also to children themselves. What do I need? What does this child need at a time of change? And it's going to be different for different children. But if you're an adult in a child's life, you're an expert. You've been living with that child or working with that child for quite some time. You have some adult insight into what you notice that child needs around times of change. For some children, it's to talk. For other children, it's to have time out where they can just dive into deep focus of something that actually maybe they've been interested in for years. For other children, it's to actually be given practical skills. In this situation, try this. They actually need it sort of spelt out. When you're not sure and you're confused about, try this. Then let's talk about what happened. And for some children, it's just acceptance. In fact, actually, goodness me, whatever age we are, we all do better when we just feel loved and accepted.
We do.
Loved appropriately for the situation, obviously. But, where we just feel like the person who's with us genuinely cares about what we're going through, is genuinely interested and curious in how we're experiencing it. And and how they might be able to help us navigate it, whilst remembering as the adults that children, and particularly children as they're going through puberty, often can't find the words. They don't have the words. So when we adults kind of go, well, just tell me what it is. What's gone wrong? How are you feeling? We're actually stressing them further. Their stress levels go up because they don't know. They don't know how to put it into words. They can't find the words. They don't even know how they feel. So then we have to be like foreign interpreters. Their behavior is their language often. How they behave is often telling us so much. So really important that we don't misread their behavior and say they're misbehaving, they're bad, they're doing wrong. No, they're communicating. And often it's not very convenient for us. It gets in the way of us doing what we want to do. We don't want to hear, see, feel what they're trying to say. Often, as an adult with a child who's struggling, how we end up feeling alongside them with the way they're behaving gives us a real insight into how they're feeling. So if you find yourself triggered and feeling irritated or shut down or hopeless, chances are it might be an indication into how they're feeling. So then thinking about, well, what do I know about this child? What would help them through with this? And equally, if you're the child and experiencing it yourself, to start asking yourself the question, even though you don't know the answer, of like, what are my feelings telling me? What are my feelings showing me about what I need right now, even when you may not be able to get what you need, because we don't always find ourselves in situations, particularly in the school environment, but, also in the work environment, can't always just meet our needs in the way that we might like to. But there's often some small thing that we can do, even to kind of take 10 minutes out in the quiet room or the toilet, or, a break, a moment just to kind of come back to yourself.
I just want to touch on a couple of things you said there. And the one I'm going to go straight for is mobile phones, technology. Should you ban them? Should you not? The answer is there is no straight, simple answer. For some, taking tech away from them will really help. For others, not being allowed to see what goes on increases anxiety. So you've got to manage that. You can't just take it away. There's steps you've got to do before that. For others, it is that connection to others which support them. So it's not a nice, simple, phones are bad, go put phones down at this time. It really depends on the child, the situation, and so many other factors on whether or not you should do that. But then again, I was thinking about as you're talking I would say my daughter probably spends, being regulated and dysregulated is not a nice, simple one or the other. There's a scale how close you are. And I think with all the stuff going on in my daughter's life, she's probably through secondary school was quite close to being dysregulated a lot of the time, which generally meant she wasn't really fully aware of what was going on. She'd come home and she kind of rant and let it all out, but she maybe wasn't taking all that information in. She was maybe seeing the surface level actions, but not seeing maybe actually this is a follow-up from last week. So you literally have to act as a parent, almost as that diary. Hang on, she sent me this week. Hang on, this sounds a bit like last week. And you end up having to put it all together. And it is because she's kind of dysregulated. She's letting it all out. You have to be non-judgmental. Very important. You can't, no matter what's going on, you've got to be non-judgmental. You can't just take your child's side. It's not about taking sides. It's about finding because what you think they should do is actually probably the wrong thing from their point of view, because that might make a big drama, which they don't want. So you can't even offer solutions in that way of you need to do this. But I found a lot of time which really helped is reflecting on things and just saying, do you think that they did that because of this? And generally because they're struggling and they're upset. Or even saying to my daughter, it's like literally going, hang on, we had this problem a month ago. And again, not or anything, but is she due on? And my daughter would just look at me and go, yeah, she is, because they're quite open about it. But when someone's grumpy at you, you're like, whoa, what have I done? And you think it's about you because you're very insecure. And I think you talked about as adults, we have that perspective. We're more confident because we got lots of experience of actually, I'm generally all they find. Now someone's being angry at me. That's probably not me. It's probably them. But as a teenager, it's always think it's your fault. It must be me. I've done something wrong. What have I done wrong? And it was just listening and finding those patterns and having those conversations with my daughter just helped her literally go away. An hour later, she'd come back and go, oh, actually, I think you're right. I've been chatting to her. And it's just, you are that, as you said right at the beginning, you are the constant, you are the solid, you are the expert in your child. You're the one who sees all the things and can link it all together that they cannot. And it's really important you fill that role in a calm, supportive manner in a way that actually I can do this. But I try to give my daughter advice on what things to do, and that never worked. So I'd often start it with, I know I'm old and I don't know anything, but sometimes she took a hint of what I said. But a lot of the time, she was only giving me some context, and the action I was giving her in the overall context was probably wrong. And there's also, I'm just going to touch on masking. Mask or to not mask. Most people say you shouldn't mask. Masking's bad. It's not healthy for you. You get that come across quite a lot. I think for some people is, if I don't mask, I'll be alone with no friends is the fear. Whereas if I mask, I'll be in a group with friends. And I had this conversation with my daughter. She chose to mask so she could have friends, so she could walk to school people. She'd have lots of people just, and yes, she had to put the mask on and let it all out when she got home. But overall, she felt that was a better option. That's a lot to deal with. For us blokes, we just, no. TV, school, homework, sometimes it's simple.
Yeah, that question of, should I mask? It's such a good one. And actually, it's not exclusive to neurodiverse girls. All girls are making that decision. What do I give up in order to fit in? I want to belong. How much of myself, my individuality, do I sacrifice in order to be part of the group? It's a really good question. We do it in every situation, children and adults alike. And of course, it's a moment by moment decision. And what we need to be aware of is, what does it cost me? What does it cost me to mask? Is that a sacrifice worth making? If it means that you are included in the group, that's a real value. That's worth sacrificing something. But if it means that you're only part of the group because of not being you, then do you really belong? Does that really feel like belonging? So it's a balancing act, and we're all doing it all the time. But it is exhausting, which is why it's so usual to have kind of times when you can't hold it any longer. And yes, that's great if you manage to get home before you need to kind of just, either have a full kind of minute by minute account of how the day has been, or lock yourself in your bedroom for a bit of kind of complete downtime, whatever your way is of kind of recovering and resourcing yourself and regaining your energy. But harder if it happens in school, where all of a sudden you can't do it anymore, and you actually need to have a moment and a space for yourself to come back to yourself. And, whether we are a teacher or a parent, it can be really hard when we're around a child who is unregulated, because they're stressed, and that's stressful for us too, and for us not to take it personally. And yet that is our job. That is our role, to be the adult in the room, to help our children regulate from us, alongside us. And that's hard, because often the child inside of us is triggered. And of course, that we too may have neurodiversity, so that gets triggered too. Whatever they're going through takes us right back to when we went through that. So the adult, I run an online parenting course, and many of those parents are parents to neurodiverse children, and they come kind of wanting answers. Tell me what to do. How do I do this? What in this situation? What do I say? And it's so that's natural. As a parent, we want to get it right. Of course we do. But there is no right. I'm sorry to say, there is no right way. We're all figuring it out. We try something, and if that seems to be heading in the right direction, we carry on. If it doesn't, our children are really good at telling us when we're getting it wrong, and we use that. It's like, okay, course correct, try something else. But what I would say to teachers and parents above all, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're searching for the right thing to say or do, just know that the most powerful thing you can offer to that child in that moment is to be calm and caring. So if you feel like you're at a loss for words, or you don't know how to respond, give yourself a moment and just be a calm, caring presence. And what that means in that situation will be obvious. You know, whether you're a teacher who just needs to be a calm and caring force in that moment, or a parent who just needs to be calm and caring, that child will then feel a sense of calm descending around them, and also a sense that there's someone else, someone outside of them who really cares.
I think there is I see it on the internet every so often, it comes up, a girlfriend ranting. It's on social. It's like a screenshot of us messaging, and the girlfriend's ranting, and the boyfriend replies, "Are we in the emotional stage or solution stage?" Because as bloke, you tell us a problem, I'll give you all the solutions. That's not what my daughter wants. No. She just wants me to listen.
To listen and to trust her. Yes, to listen, but also to trust her that she has the solutions, and that actually by you listening, she can also hear herself. And by hearing herself, she finds some of her solutions. I loved what you said before about how sometimes you're also like her prefrontal cortex. You're the one who can kind of go, this sounds like what happened last week, or isn't this a bit like what you went through with the other person a month ago? So that you, whilst particularly when we're in a crisis and we're stressed, we can't think clearly. So essentially they borrow our brains, they borrow our capacity to think clearly, not to give them solutions, but just to be listening and maybe reflecting back what we hear so that they can hear themselves even better.
And I would like to say that so many times I have felt completely useless with my daughter because I haven't given her a solution. We haven't had this conversation, and she's got 5 steps she can go through to solve the problem. But from my point of view, I feel, from her point of view, I've done exactly what I needed to do, which was listen, not judge, give her a hug, go do something together, distract her a bit. Because again, sometimes just distracting her. We do a Costco run, we go to the supermarket, anything. Just an hour of doing something else, almost like takes her out of where she is, and it gives her time to relax, and she'll talk on the car journey, and it gets calmer, and then like her frontal cortex comes back, and she's going, "Oh, actually," so my job isn't to solve the problems. I thought it was. I thought I had to solve everything. I'm her dad. I solve and fix everything. No, my job is to listen, to care, to be there, to distract, and do that reminding.
And you call it distraction, but actually, as I listen to what you're calling distracting, that's being calm and caring. You are doing something that's repetitive, that's safe, go to Costco, something that you both do together. You're keeping her company and giving her your calm presence while she kind of returns back to herself. And actually, I know this one as a parent, you do want to fix all the things and take away all the problems. Of course you do. But how disrespectful is that of life and learning? That if we always fixed everything, then we haven't equipped our children to go out into the world and manage without us. And I think sometimes a good guide is, if this was my best friend rather than my child, would that be disrespectful to say, I think you should do this? No, with our best friend, we trust that they have the wherewithal and the inner resources and also inner knowing of what's going to be best for them. How dare I think I know what's best for them? And often I rein myself in as a parent by kind of comparing it with what I would do with a best friend, because actually, if I'm trying to offer solutions to my children, I'm not respecting them and I'm not trusting them. But what I can do is exactly what you're describing, which is create the environment where they can process it. Not necessarily, partly by talking, partly just by keeping them company and doing something kind of actually that seems to be totally unrelated. But we all know that the brain keeps ticking things over while we wash up, while we shower, while we go for a walk, while we do something practical or domestic. and that actually the brain continues to be figuring it out. And actually, by you still being there, she can pick up the thread of that conversation and kind of go, I think if I said this, that might be. So in actual fact, that process of parenting, often I think as a parent, especially if we're presented with a crisis, with a child who seems to be under stress, we want to take that stress away. That would be a great disservice. Staying with them in the stress and allowing them to find a way through where they can kind of regulate themselves again, then start to think clearly, and then perhaps come up with some solutions. That can take minutes, hours, weeks, months.
Yeah. One of the things you said there is treat them like how would you treat a best friend. Is I don't know where it came from or why or anything, but I decided when I think my eldest was at secondary school, my youngest was top of primary. I think you'd get into clashes because you are treating them like children. I just went, I'm going to stop. I'm going to treat this house as we are 4 adults. Yes, I will say, what do we want to do? To me, we have 4 equal votes. Sometimes the children are wrong because they don't have enough information. They haven't got that context, the perspective. But I started treating them as adults. And when we have these conversations, I'm not talking down to them. I'm literally talking to them like my friend telling me their problems, how I would do things. If I want to do something that I wouldn't tell them this is what we're doing. I would say, I was thinking of going here. What do you think? And what I found, just changing my language and treating them more like an adult in lots of different small ways, made everything better. And I think it opened up those conversations because I was treating them differently. So the trust, I think, was then returned by having the open conversations. So yeah, treating them as like adults or your best friend, how would you approach that? And start
Absolutely.
changing your conversation. I think we get stuck as they're our children. That's our little child.
And the thing is, the girls groups that we run, so often what we hear from the girls is, this is brilliant, it's not like school. And my heart feels sad because I think, why are you saying this is brilliant and then in the next say it's not like school, implying that school isn't brilliant in this way? And I think it's because both parents and teachers, we get into the habits of talking down to children, and yet we get so much more out of them, but also out of the relationship with them when we treat them on a more respectful basis. We aren't their best friends though. And that actually is an important distinction, I think, to make. They have their best friends, and their best friends are not their parents and not their teachers. We have a very particular role in their lives, which is very special. And I think parents make a mistake when they start behaving only like a best friend to a child, because sometimes we have teachers the same, more of a guiding, sort of steering, holding role to take in their lives. But it's really interesting when we're working with girls, they're sort of 10, 11, 12 years old when we start working with them. So essentially they are not yet adults by any stretch of imagination. They are no longer small children though, and beginning to treat them like the growing up people that they are, it just brings out the best in them. They aspire to meet what we expect of them. They aspire to kind of meet the responsibilities that we've collectively chosen as a group that individuals will take. They regulate each other as well as themselves. They take responsibility. When we give responsibility, they take it. When we take responsibility, they don't. They don't take it. And it's a nuanced thing to know, when is it appropriate to, like you say, I love hearing how you just a slight change in your phrasing, like we're going to do this as compared to I'm thinking of this. How, what do you think? Is such a powerful change for any person, but particularly for a growing up person to kind of feel like, oh, what I think matters. It's also teaching our children about consent, which is also so important, that actually they are able to say no, not to everything and not in every circumstance, but that actually they do have agency and they need to start feeling that agency. It's funny, with the girls that we work with, we have a session where we talk to them about what they're looking forward to about growing up. And it starts with, oh, I can eat what I want, I can go to bed when I want, I can watch whatever I want, I can have as many pets as I want, and then it goes more into kind of, I'll have a home and I might have children, and then we talk about so what's the journey? How do you get from where you are now to having all of those things that you want? And at first they kind of go, oh, I've just got to get a job and get money and get my own life and get rid of my parents and, and then have to leave school, no homework. But then they start to kind of go, oh, I have to learn how to take the responsibility. The freedoms come with responsibility. And I share with them, I say, look, I'm a parent to 3 children. I gauged how much I could hand over their bedtime or what they were doing over to them. I was watching them to see whether they were making responsible decisions. If they go out without a coat on a wet and windy day, I'm not going to just step back and say nothing. I mean, I might, so they learn by experience if it's okay to. But for the most part, it's as we show ourselves to be more responsible, we are then gifted more freedoms, which is what our growing children want.
I think they have to learn to go out with a coat at least once to learn. Yes, although I don't like carrying the coat, it was a really bad day not having it.
Yeah.
And there's lots. It's like I was hearing my mum say to me, "If you're going to act like a child, I'll treat you like a child." In my head, you were what my thought process was in that moment was you were treating me like a child, so I acted up as a child. Mm-hmm. And I think as parents, it's like when you walk if you go into your house, once you walk past something 2 or 3 times, you don't really see or notice it. So if your house is getting you see your house freshly painted, front door, every time you walk through it, you're seeing a freshly painted front door. Until someone comes along, goes 10 years later and goes, oh, that front door needs a bit painting. You look at it again and go, whoa, when did that happen? I think we do the same with our children. They're our little children. And yes, our neck isn't looking down quite so much, but in our head, they are still our little children. And I don't think we take that fresh look of going, actually, at secondary school, they have so much more independence. The executive function they need to manage everything is so huge, but suddenly we're still trying to treat them like they're in primary school. And I think we have to make that jump as well.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we treat them like little children, they will be more likely to behave like little children. If we treat them like emerging young adults, then they will step up to that. But equally, it's on them too. If they behave like children, we're going to continue to see them like children. So I say to the girls that I work with, if you want more responsibilities, if you want more freedoms, then find a mature way of asking for it and showing that you're capable. Work with the adults around you and compromise with them so that it's a process. It's a two-way, it's a relationship.
But how do we learn how to deal with everything? By getting it wrong first and learning a better way. Yeah. So if you don't let them go out without the coat, if you don't let them go make that wrong decision once, if you don't let them fail and then go, okay, this isn't a rule my mum's or dad's given me. This is a rule that you just have to do. I'm giving it to myself. And then they start doing it. But it's like if you don't let them get it wrong, if you don't let them make the wrong decisions within limits, they then won't learn why they should make the other decision. And as I think sometimes it's hard to let your children fail in those moments, and you choose the best times for that to happen. But you have to let them to then start trusting when you do tell them they need to, they're going, oh, actually, the last 3 things I didn't do, my mum said I needed to do, that went wrong. I might do this one. They've got to learn that. You can't suddenly teach them it. I remember my parents saying to me, don't get a credit card, you'll get into debt. I got a credit card. I thought I knew best. I got into debt. You learn by doing, not by being told.
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's what happens after the mistake is made. We have a role as adults not to do the I told you so or the I'm here. This is I want you to really punishingly feel this consequence because that's how you're going to learn. That's if you don't listen to me. It's much more to be there. And again, a calm, loving, caring way of like, okay, so you messed up. What have you learned? What will you do differently next time? What can I help you to be able to do it differently? How can I support you?
The consequence has already happened. You don't need to add a consequence. It's already happened.
Yeah.
They're coming to you, almost admitting you were right. You don't have to say it.
No.
You just have to just be there. It's not right or wrong. It's learning. You learn through getting it wrong. If you keep getting it wrong, then we've got an issue. But I think for most of the things, when my daughter was struggling with things, generally it was a new situation she hadn't gone through. She hadn't learnt the rules. Yeah. If you give her a rule book, she'll fine. But growing up, every year, new things. Every year, something changed. Not the same situation, a different situation. You help her learn the rules, she can adapt it. Then the rules change again. So every time things were going wrong, it's because it was a new situation. And how can I be upset for anyone being put in a new situation, not knowing what to do? As employers, you employ people. If you then have a job, they must do this, but you don't give them the opportunity or help them to do that, you can't have a go at them for not doing it. That's on you. And to me, it's the same with being a parent. You can't just expect them to get it right when they first encounter it. They'll get it wrong.
And yet we do live in a culture of covering up of mistakes. In Rights for Girls, I'm the founder director of the organisation, and we start every meeting with each of us owning up to a mistake that we've made that week, and then what we've learnt from it, because we're trying to create a culture where we don't hide our mistakes, we celebrate them, we share them so that we all learn from them. But when I think about when I was at school, it was all about getting things right. It was all about being marked and judged and sort of ranked according to how right I was. So no wonder our children don't want to make mistakes. And oh my goodness, the number of girls that I work with who are crippled by perfectionism, who really are crippled by, and they just say, tell me what the rules are. Just tell me what to do so I can do it right. And actually, it's that painful kind of process of there are actually no rules here. And you're going to be figuring out what's right for you. And the way that you're going to be figuring that out is by getting it wrong over and over and over again. You'll get it wrong more often than you get it right, because the minute you get it right, you move on to the next thing. You've got that cracked now, and you're moving on to the next thing that you're learning. So actually, to look at our learning, whether it be in the workplace or at school or as a parent, is actually to see what we're doing is experimenting all the time. What if I said this? What if I try that? And more often than not, it's like, okay, that's sort of, no, not quite right, so I'll try this. I think it's a sort of a misbelief that we kind of live in this world where we kind of think that we could, should, or even ought to try and get things right. Most of the time we're all muddling through. Most of the time we're human beings, and there isn't one right way. There's lots of different ways, and we're all just figuring it out as we go along. But our children more so than ever, because particularly through puberty, when so much is changing and there's so much to learn, celebrating with them all the things that they're learning by getting things wrong can really help them not become paralyzed and risk averse and not wanting to try things in case they make a mistake and they mess up.
But when you do mess up, there's a scale from nuclear mess up to, yeah, she ignored me for an hour, mess up. Yeah, there are those, and you'll learn certain ones are generally nuclear. Do not do these ones. You learn those quite quickly. A lot of them are quite global. And it's generally what you learn is, I'm not quite sure what to do. I'll probably get it wrong. But you generally learn how to get it wrong in a small way. And I say to my daughter, sometimes I have to have a hard conversation, one of those difficult conversations. And I will say to them things like, I don't know how to approach this, but I need to have the conversation because I care. So, and I'll put that prerequisite in of, if anything I'm saying is offensive, I really don't mean it, but I also need to ask and have this conversation because I care and I'm concerned about you. And then we have the conversation and I go, was I all right? Anything I can do to, it's like getting that review back. And generally they kind of get it. they know that it's going to be hard. As soon as I start saying that, like, oh God. But they do appreciate that I'm having that conversation with them. So sometimes when it is, and I can't see a great way, it's going to be a hard, I'm not going to enjoy it. There's no great win. There's no buy a milkshake and mate, it'll be fine. There is no, you have to lose. But if you say why you're losing, because you care, it generally works out all right.
And Dale, what you said there was perfect as a parent. And I'd like to say that teachers can do that too. I think so often teachers feel as if they have to be kind of even more than parents, all knowing, all in charge, all in control. But actually, how would it be for a child to have a teacher come to them and say, I'm not quite sure how to approach this, but I want to talk to you because I care. And then to have a go at saying it, whatever, and then afterwards check in, just exactly as you've done as a parent, to say, how was that? What did you hear? What are you taking from this conversation? And I think this is the sort of thing that I think teachers often feel they don't have permission to kind of step into that kind of way of being with children. And yet they respond so well, so very well.
So we're doing a podcast, Autism, Girls and Puberty, and we have not mentioned periods yet. We're coming towards the end of terms of time, but we do need to make sure we discuss periods. That is a whole complex issue on its own, isn't it?
Yes. And actually, periods is a really important one to know about if you are the parent or a teacher of a neurodiverse girl, because lots of neurodiverse girls find periods too icky and impossible to even talk about or deal with. So we actually have to take a greater role, a more involved role, potentially, in the menstruation cycle of a neurodiverse girl than of another girl. And interestingly, often I notice a lot of the neurodiverse girls in my groups often have started a bit younger. So let's start with primary school. We need to make sure that all that she needs is in every single cubicle of the girls' toilets, not just one cubicle where there's a bin for period products. So then she's got to wait, and people are going, well, you can use this toilet, and she needs to wait for the others and feels embarrassed because everyone can see. She needs to know. So if we're talking about schools now, children need to know where they can get supplies, period products, if they haven't got one, if they've forgotten or they've run out, or maybe it's their first bleed. Every single girl needs to know who's got that. Is it the school nurse? Is it the receptionist? Have you got them in the school toilets? Where can they go that feels relatively private to be able to ask? Another really important thing is in class time, can she get up and go to the toilet in the middle of a lesson? Anyone who's bled knows that you can get a letdown of blood at any time. You can't just save it for break. You may be sitting there and suddenly you feel a bit of a flooding feeling. Warm and wet, you need to go to the toilet now. But you don't want everyone to know why. But you need to be able to release to go to the... I know schools where they don't allow children to leave the classroom during class time to go to the children. That's a human rights issue. So if you're in a school where it's difficult for a girl to leave the classroom in the middle of a lesson, that needs to be sorted out. That needs to be resolved, whether it's primary or secondary school. But particularly primary schools aren't quite ready. They perhaps haven't, then they're sort of assuming it's not going to happen for many girls. As a parent to a neurodiverse girl, they need to understand what's happening to them in really clear terms. There's some great books out there specifically about periods for autism that explain it. I also have a chapter in my book, From Daughter to Woman, Parenting Girls Safely Through Their Teens, which is all about periods. What do I call it? Bloody Marvellous, or I can't remember. Sorry, it's my book. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, in there, I've also got the words that I use when I'm describing what happens to girls themselves. So it's age appropriate. So if you as a parent didn't ever have anyone explain to you in a way that felt kind of comfortable and right, then I give you the words, I give you the explanation, I give you the facts and the interesting information, but also the how to. What do you do if? What can you do when? What do you need to know? And actually, as a parent of a neurodiverse girl, watch out for that she perhaps can't deal with the blood. And, I've known of girls who couldn't bear to tell a parent, and later a huge plastic bag of pants and pads was found in the corner, months old. And that's on the adults, not on the child.
No, on the adults.
And not all children are quite ready to deal with the blood.
No.
Literally, to deal with the blood. It's a big ick for a lot of girls. A big OCD, can't go anywhere near it, can't touch anything that's been near it kind of an ick. We need to give them, like, what do you do when and how do you manage it? Like, really practical.
I've learned a lot from my daughter. I've learned more from my daughter than my wife on periods. She is an absolute sharer. And I listen to the things she tells me, and I think back to my secondary school, and it's almost like it just didn't happen. And I don't know if it did. I do not remember the stuff my daughter is talking about. I was oblivious to. I had 2 older sisters. I had no idea. In sex ed, boys get completely different sex ed. So if you're a male teacher, if your boyfriend, if your daughter's boyfriend has no idea about periods, do not blame them. Blame the environment they grew up in. My daughter has shared me so much. And that thing about, she'll always take a hoodie. If we go out from a restaurant, can I sit on your hoodie? Because she's worried. The answer is yes, every single time. Don't ask. Don't even tell me the reason. Just take my hoodie. And the fact that this isn't like a once a year worry. This is a very regular worry. We have to book holidays around this. It is a huge worry that is impacting her every single month. And she knows other girls who are going through the same, who are literally worried about standing up in class and all this lot. And I can't believe. And if my daughter's school said she would not be allowed to go to the toilet, I would go absolutely ballistic on her and every other girls. But it is so not right. It is so not right. I would drive to school, collect her, take her home and take her back. I do not care. It is not right. Whatever you'll say, the reasons, vaping behavior, things like that, do not care. That is something you've got to find a way of managing. It can't be a blanket, no toilets. That is not right. And from a bloke who's never been through it, never experienced it, watching my daughter go through puberty all the way through school and realizing how much it impacts her when we're away, everything. And she doesn't do tampons. She only does pads. That has another big impact on what she wears. So she might plan an outfit, can't wear that outfit this week. It's just ridiculous how much it impacts her. And the fact that blokes don't understand is not their fault. They've just not been experienced. So please do not blame men as a general thing. We do not know. And I've learned so much.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to learn. And actually, often girls want to learn from other women, but not always. They want to learn from a trusted adult, basically, who might be a teacher. It might be a Girls Journeying Together facilitator. It's the reason that we meet with the girls as they make that transition from year 6 to year 7. We meet monthly so they get to feel what monthly feels like. And we talk about all the things that you need to learn. And like you say, Dale, it's a lot. But it's also not just, I want to also remind us that becoming a teenage girl, going through puberty, it's an extraordinary and really special thing as well. Yes, it's got lots of challenges, lots of things that need to be navigated, lots of growth, lots of mistakes made. But actually, whether you are yourself going through the teenage years or you're around children who are, let's celebrate what a time of exploration and discovery, of questioning, and of becoming, of becoming more fully yourself. And it is in the context of a lot of challenge, but I see it also as a very exuberant, potentially very formative, important time. So we as adults, really important that we don't step back as our children go into the teen years. We actually move in. we're there. We have to be there in a different way, whether we're teachers or parents. The role, as we've talked about today, needs to adapt and change as the child grows to be appropriate for that age child. But it is a time to really walk alongside our young people. They are our future. You know, the girls, many of the girls are going to become the leaders of the future. That some of them are going to become the mothers of the next generation. They're all our elders in waiting. So if we are concerned about the future, we have impact that we can make through our young people.
And if you are a dad and your daughter is sharing this, like my daughter does with me, that is the most massive compliment you are ever going to get, because you are trusted, you are listening, you are caring. I get messages, hot water bottle. I think for a lot of for neurodiverse girls, periods, the cramps and everything can be a lot worse. So that is something. My daughter just will come in the morning when she was at secondary school going, I can't go in today. I go, fine. I'm not even going to question. And there is this whole thing about attendance. And the commissioner's report, which came out recently, the second word was engaging. Yes, she might be in, but if she is in pain and she can't concentrate or do anything, she's not going to learn anything. So let's just have a day at home where she's comfortable and she might be able to go in the next day. So mental health days for periods, absolutely big tick. There are various other reasons why girls may take time off during periods. If they can't get hold of sanitary tampons and pads and that. There's so many reasons. That's not your place to judge or question. It's that your job is to support. And it's the other thing I think some girls or parents think, and I've read, going on birth control, not because you're sexually active, but because it can help regulate those periods and things like that. And I know some girls do that who are neurodiverse, but also with all the hormones all over the place, that can actually be even worse. So it's trying to find the right one. So it can be a lot of hard work and draining, ongoing, difficult decisions. And as a parent, you're watching your child live through it, and that is really hard. And you're trying to find out the best path with no rule book.
And one of the things that our monthly cycle teaches all women, is the importance that we learn how to take care of ourselves, particularly at certain times of the month. And for those girls who are experiencing extreme cramping, particularly at the start of their period starting, because their body is still figuring out the whole kind of cycle of hormones. It's not uncommon to have extra challenges at the very start of starting your period. But it's also perhaps an indication that something's out of balance. So it's a time also to check in with professionals who it might be as simple as B12. More B12 is needed, or cutting back on fatty foods and salt at certain times of the month, or taking evening primrose oil, or for everyone it's different. So not to just kind of think, how can we dull the pain and get through this? It's like the body is speaking.
Yep.
The body is letting us know if all is well. And if there is a lot of pain, it's really worth seeking additional help. You talked about the pill. That is synthetic hormones. So yes, it's often offered as an instant relief, because essentially through the pill, you're taking over the hormonal cycle. And for some girls, it provides instant and necessary relief. What we have to watch out for, though, is we have increasing infertility problems in our population. And some research has shown that this may be linked to early use or long use of synthetic hormones through the pill. So whilst it might look like an instant solution, it may not be the right long-term solution for a girl. And so looking for what is needed here. And you talked about being a dad, and what a compliment it was that your daughter trusted you. And I think I wanted to follow that with how important the role of dads and male teachers and male coaches and male family friends are in a girl's life. I think it's not unusual for men to sort of, as a girl enters puberty, for men to kind of go, whoa, this is now out of my territory. I'm now out of my comfort zone. I'm not the right person here. This is becoming very emotional. It's becoming, it's not appropriate for me to be close. The opposite is true. Actually, if we're able to stay men are able to stay in close connection with either their female students or their daughters or their nieces in an age-appropriate way. Men are the teacher of relationship. How you treat your daughter or how you treat your female student, how she sees you treating her mother or how she sees you treating other female colleagues, that sets the blueprint for what she expects from the men in her life. That's what teaches her what to allow from boys and then in later time male colleagues in the workplace and in her romantic relationships. Mothers are sort of taken for granted. They're like the earth we walk on. We take it for granted. We don't really think of it. Fathers are the teacher of relationship. Fathers and males. So you have an enormous important part to play, to step up and to treat her in the way that you'd like all men to treat her throughout the rest of the course of her life.
And that is very much true, because she'll be ranting about her ex-boyfriend, and he was an only child. And he was like, he doesn't know anything. He thinks periods are like going for a wee and all that lot. And I'm like, stop blaming him. I said, this is his world. He has no sisters to learn from. His parents aren't going to discuss it with him, and he hasn't had the sex ed. You are teaching him. So if he doesn't respond well, yes, that's bad. But he has had no experience, and you're teaching him. And it was that sort of thing. It was that she had to learn, and she helped him a lot. And I said, I didn't think the relationship would last. And I would often say to her, his future girlfriends are going to thank you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, actually, get him to get the app on his phone so he knows where you are in your monthly cycle. Get him to start recognizing, oh, it must be, she's more sensitive. I need to be more aware in this lead up to the bleed. Or, she's really out there. It's halfway through her monthly cycle. She's got it all going on creatively and socially. And the more that men can understand women's monthly cycle, particularly the women they live with or are close to, the more you can benefit from that too, that connection to life's cycles and life's rhythms.
I think we've covered it. Have we missed anything? Is there anything else you want to add in?
I think I want to finish with remembering what an important stage of life it is as a child, girl or boy, goes through adolescence. They are discovering themselves and finding themselves, and it's a privilege to be allowed to be alongside that in whatever role you have. And just expect to be challenged. How does someone find out who they are if they don't challenge the rules and the boundaries, if they don't try things out and make mistakes? So as much as we adults can be the adult, not take it personally, but be kind and calm and caring around those growing people, the better the relationship with them will be, the more fulfilled we will be in our role with them, but also the better we will be serving the coming generations.
Definitely. And it's when you say discovering, it sounds like a lovely, lovely event that happens. It's like if you go to an NCT antenatal group, birth sounds lovely. You go to the NHS antenatal, it's brutal. But it is that perspective, but you have got children becoming young women. That's not a smooth journey. Our job as parents and all the adults around that person is to make that journey easier, not by telling them the direction or everything, but just being there while they're on that journey.
And if some of what I've talked about, if you think, I'd like to train to work with girls groups to support them as they make that transition from year 6 to year 7, come find out about our training at rightsforgirls.com. Rights for Girls is spelt RITES, as in rites of passage. We also have retreats for mothers of daughters, online parenting courses. You can work with me one-to-one, but really each of us finding our best way of supporting the next generation. That's how, if you find it difficult watching the news, as I do, we can actually each individually make a difference to how things play out in the future. And it's through the massive potential of the next generation. And we all have a part to play in that.
And that takes me a nice segue straight into As always, you're going to find all Kim's contact details in our show notes. So website address, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, her email, they're on YouTube, her book, Mother's Journeys Together, Mother's Journeying Together, Parents Through Difficult Times, Girls Net, Parent Pause, loads of links Kim shared, so lots of resources to use and find out. And as always, you'll find those show notes wherever you listen to the podcast or on the Sendcast website. So thank you for listening to the show. If you are listening through a platform that allows you to review the podcast or give it a rating, please leave a little review or give it a 5-star rating and let others know what you think. If you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, please send a message to us via social media or send an email to hello@thesendcast.com. The Sendcast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and we help to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEND make. And we help schools to show progress for a wide range of abilities and ages. We have a range of frameworks from birth all the way through to 25. So we have our engagement steps, our early steps for the early years, primary steps, progression steps, and our steps for life aimed at those oldest children or young people looking at academic skills, employability skills, and life skills. Lots of stuff going on. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through our assessment software and what it can do for you. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sendcast. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.